interpreting my dreams when I write them down by adding the adjunct or the addition reference that I understand that it's much more likely referring to. And that's been a way that I'm finding to write things that I'm always having to include the additional in parentheses interpretation. So anyway, I'm going to try this anyway. And the dream had a couple of parts to it, which were, I'd say, interrelated. And the scene areas were two different spots. One was being in the White House of the United States, attending what I called a historical meetup, which means that it wasn't just the current people, but that it was also my family members, and some of them, my brothers in particular. We go by the name of Adams, and Adams was former president, who I think I was one of, John Quincy, the second Adams. John was the first. And I have so many references and associations with this that I don't need to go into them, but it relates to the dream in part because I said to myself that I had a right to be able to attend. Okay, so it was attending a meeting in the White House, and it was something like what I called an inaugural event, which means that when the president is elected, but there wasn't anything going on about that. It was just something similar to a possible gathering of people and in allowed in people, and that included family members I have. And so I wrote, I was a president, I should be able to attend this inaugural or whatever meeting it was, which I was accepted, and it was fine. There wasn't any tensions or any of that. It was an affiliation that I'd been part of or earned or whatever. So then the meeting, I'm not able to communicate the order of things like Jeremy does really well. And unfortunately, I'm more of okay, this thing happened, and that relates backwards to something else, and or that kind of thing. I kind of am receiving the write down part of it is after I've gone over the dream while I was laying down, waking up in the morning. And this writing down is almost like a going backwards over it. And this is one of the problems I'm having with communication with everybody and with people, is that they're inverting everything I say, and they're assuming that I'm mistaken or that my view is not communicated clearly. And those are two of the different things that are going on. And the third one is a general lack of trust and affinity with whatever it is that I'm communicating about. And that could be cars or repairs, any 2 or 3 different areas that this is going on in. There is at the White House attending, there was something to do with the wife of my brother. And my brother, I think, was also one of these presidentials. And they are very conservative and Republican of attitude. And so when I went there in the real experience about 3 months ago, I was basically, we'll call it, not exactly, but kicked out of the house because I said I was going to sleep on the floor, and then I ended up putting a sheet on the bed, and that created a ruckus in the morning because I didn't do exactly what I said. And actually, I was called a liar. Holy mackerel. The I'm calling it being anal retentive, but it is extremely literal minded and everything in its place attitude. So instead of me staying a couple more nights with my brother, what happened was, well, a friend came to visit, and we went back to my old homeland house area, and then at the end of that, he suddenly started having car trouble, and I had car trouble today. Sorry, this is so personal oriented. I'm just trying to get the connections and how they relate to the miscommunication and our ability to share things and work with individuals to demonstrate. So I've been doing that demonstration, and if I don't do everything on the P's and Q's, then I get all this. And with the car, my friend had car trouble, and he said, I've got to take my car all the way back 5 hours home to get it repaired, and I'm going to dump you off in your hometown. So my family member put me in a hotel instead and paid a lot of money, which I really could have used. And again, the whole attention on what is really the priority of what's needed was completely erroneous to the best that, from my point of view. All right, put up with it, and of course, and whatever, have to adjustments and go on. So I then, that took care of that. But this is the brother I'm talking about, who was part of the origination of the United States. And so we're having this dream meeting, somewhat to address the issues, but not really. It was more to just have everyone kind of be together. And it wasn't about changing anything. But I was there with some concept of what would be valuable to change and or to move towards. And what that came through was in the dream, my brother's wife said that she couldn't speak hardly. It was like a laryngitis, but basically she was if she spoke very softly, and she was not sharing any idea or anything, except for that she was part of and included, and or that she was representing something, which was to take care of the property of whatever we had. And in her case, it was about something to do with the house that they lived in, and the fact that her property was less than the neighbors who had inflated property value. And was this a good thing or bad? Well, I'm not saying, but I do know that there's an issue with the property values of the United States going down because this current generation of men are not able to afford or wanting to work with the system as it has been, and they can't afford the property values. So all the property values are going to come down. Now, this isn't going to affect the rich people more than the poor people, because in fact, the rich people are still going to have their inflated property values. This is one of the very big issues that's ongoing. The Speaker of the House is the name I gave to him. He was sitting up in the front, on the side, like some of the dignitaries do. And I was talking to share with him a little bit, but the main thing I remembered actually seeing was that there was, at some point, being in the grounds of the White House, and that the library was important for some reason. The library was in the middle of the area, and I saw something about the ALLLISSS book. There were other books that I couldn't or didn't notice the labels on that were out there. And so I thought this was interesting as a coordination point, because of, well, reading books and reading or observing what's going on with the materials that we have available, and then and making them available also. And that was the relation I picked up about that, the observing. But what I had said, one of the things I was thinking of saying, the key of the politician is to put the horse before the man, meaning to put our observation first and then use that to see what needs to be done and then do it. And it's a general process that I had been learning yesterday, practicing to do, because I've been cleaning out all this stuff outside, and I had to redo the structure of this hut, if I'm going to call it that. It's just a place where I have things covered from the rain and storehouse. And when I was working on putting it back together, I noticed that I had to take everything out first, basically, and clean it all up. And then I started to repair one of the struts, support beams, if you will. And now I've got it where that's secure, and I can redo the cover, and, in other words, go back and redo, and restructure, and mostly eliminate most of what's there also. Do all of that, and then put in what is necessary only, and make sure everything is very much well built. It doesn't mean to change the laws or the rules that are necessary, but it means to observe them and see our new interpretation of what to do. So I called that observing, but first how this relates was that I also had an idea that I said about dealing with the Lord of the universe, or being the Lord of the universe, or that is, being the Lord of the all is. I don't want to use that term, but it's not a bad term also. But what I mean is that I was sharing that the one job of the Lord of the universe is to observe and then be a seer. Our job is, as the Lord, to observe and be the seer. And I was going to share that. If I had this idea, that's what I should share. Okay, so here I am with our group, and I'm with this group of dignitaries who are invited, and who are with the recognition and have the willingness to listen and rectify, if you will, or to work together. And with the new guides, you could say, in hand. And so I wrote down what I said, besides the key of the politician is to put the horse before the man, what that means is, instead of the man being the one who decides and says what we're going to do, like Mr. T, is wanting to do his thing, his way, and he's not putting what I called put the heart before the law. Because the laws are just part of the process, but if we don't put ourselves and the true reality in the front, nothing is going to be done right. It's all backwards. And that's exactly what I've experienced happening. And it happened in such a severe way today, also with the car, that I was directly observing this. Okay. There was another part. All right, so part 2 was real interesting in that I was at a place high on let's say in a cliff, or something very tall, like an abyss over a valley, or something like that, pretty tall, and above an ocean, I think, below. And I was walking. I walked to the edge, and there was a strip, like I called it salt arch, but really it was just like a strip of salt, but like a rope or a strip of line going down, and all I had to do was slide on the strip, and it was really fun. And it was like really going down, like straight down almost. And, just slide on down, and like a water slide, so to speak. And so I got down to the beach, and then I came back, and I told some other people about it. And I told the political group, we'll say, but maybe that was significant as a reference to telling our group here about this. And that's, I'm trying to tell it to the people who don't really want to understand or know about it, or they don't have the references to hold it, so that they have difficulty, and it gets very frustrating for them. And that is definitely the experience I'm having. It's getting very frustrating for everybody else to get what I'm trying to say. So I'm observing this, and what is the better way of me doing this? I think that's this dream is about. Okay, just to give a little bit more on the interpretation, I remember saying to someone at the end of the political part that I went outside, and I was kind of driving around a corner, and I said, I don't like the Texas. I don't want to go to Texas, or something like that. And I was saying something like, I don't like Texas. The license plate is Tex S or T-Ax. T-Ass. So it had something to do with Mr. T as a presidential person, but also it's very Republican there, and their license plate, that's what I said. I didn't like the license plate. And I have a license plate that says GOD. It's actually 6OD on it. So again, these things are all connected. I was trying to make a plan to drive this car, and it has given me a problem. So, maybe that's not the thing for me to do either. Nonetheless, we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to share the views of the arch, which I did, and I comment on the president's statements and words, but I was really commenting on the historical statements and words, like Lincoln. And Lincoln, who was Gettysburg Address and inauguration, even related to Declaration of Independence, etc., of course. But Lincoln was the one who actually helped installate slavery by saying that they were getting rid of it. What they actually installed was increased slavery, with everyone having to sign on the dotted line, and made everyone slaves to the tax system, which was installed at Lincoln's time in order to pay for the military-industrial complex. So that's like a historical reference that goes back to this meeting attention at the White House, and I got it. Identify also listening in a royal way, that is, in an honorable, goodwill way, and identify what I call the problems, which really is, in this case, the cost, which is what we're talking about property values being inflated. Because that's in the political sense, but the cost in this, let's say, spiritual sense, is humanity and our goodwill and our good nature and our cooperation with the all-is and just amongst ourselves. That's the representation to demonstrate. That is the RealEducation, which is not to come up with a solution that's like, okay, we've got this money problem, so let's fix it with this, that, and the other thing. At the end here, I'm saying that this is the representation of the RealEducation, which is not a solution like fixing the money problem again. And that's happening anyway, because they are going to have to lower the property values in order for everyone to be able to stay within their prison slavery system. Nonetheless, that's not a real solution, of course, but there it is as part of the processing that seems to be going on. And we're going through this process as our individualities within ourselves, doing this process all the way to the all-is, and not being regulated into a certain control system operation. In other words, not doing that in doing whatever in a totally free and uninhibited, or at least not an assembled operation method. We'll say there is no real method. It just is an isness. Everything is, and to recognize that, bingo. Which is funny because I use the term bingo for this lottery thing that I'm working on, which involves money. And, you know, it's all has this recognition of the interrelation, and the true recognition, will say, not the interrelation per se, because that's only the vehicle, like, well, taxes would be to gain money from the people, or our group is referencing the new UU. The new UU is not the all-is, and but we use it to be able to recognize and work with the references, and that's the tool. So the tool is not the answer, but what this everybody has done in the old way is to, yes, they got the tools, so that's the answer, and it's not the answer. It'd be like saying, okay, Jesus, I'm going to become part of your group and you know, accept your thing, and that's not the answer. That is a tool that they have used or wanted to use, and it's run its course. So how that related was, I said one more thing. I said that there is one, and its reality is. So I got these three phrases: put the horse before the man, or the heart before the law. And then I wrote down the one about the Lord of the universe, that our real job is to be the seer and the observer, and then be the seer to become the real law, if you will. Didn't necessarily need that term, but okay. And there is one, and its reality is. That's the third one. And this comes from the original teachings that I was following with the new guides were participating. And there was this, there is but one, and its reality is. I think that's how it went. But I took out the but, and you could say there is one reality, all is, as a statement. So there isn't any distance to the actuality. And that's really great, I think. I had a joke that ends this up that, well, what happened at the car was a local came by because he saw that I was disabled by the side of the road. I didn't want to risk driving the car. The transmission probably needs fluid, and that's all it is. But we couldn't find the place to put the fluid in, so I was going to drive it to get the car fixed, but I couldn't make it. So while I was there, I was calling, and this guy came by, a neighbor, and it was somebody that also knows my wife. His wife knows my wife very well, and they taught together at the school. They were teachers. And so he's got on his license plate, John 3:16. And so I said to him, hey, are you John? You know, and I might as well have been Jesus out there, honest to God. It's almost like that, stupid craziness like that. And I was joking with him, no, my name's James, another Bible name. And, but he got the reference, so I lightened him up immediately. And all he did was call for me, but he didn't need to because we were already doing that. So he actually didn't do anything for me that we needed. And that's a reference that's really on the mark here, because it's the same thing that happened with my friend that I had come over to look at the car to find where we could check for the fluids. He didn't do it either. He said, I don't know foreign car, and this is an automatic, not a it's a 5-speed. And I've been mixing up manual and automatic, by the way, since I was 17, and never seemed to be able to keep them in my head correctly. And the thing about that is that manual transmission is then automatic, means everybody is going on automatic using their phones. That's exactly what happened when my wife came to handle this, and it upset her, etc. And she really didn't need to. All she needed to do was make the call, but she was kind of on automatic with the phone, and demonstrated that about 2 or 3 different times, relying on the phone instead of what I said and misinterpreting what I said. Okay, how that relates is the same thing. And the final thing was this John 3:16. I didn't know what it meant, but I told it to my wife. I said, this guy came over and he had John 3:16, and it means, she quoted it perfectly. She said, I am the Lord. I can't tell you now what it is. And you have to sacrifice yourself to me, surrender thyself, etc. That's the Bible interpretation, which is, of course, the same thing that I actually needed to do, was just surrender everything, or in that sense, just let it be and follow the process and open myself to the all is. It's definitely working in this whole thing, because final statement is, when I was in the car, it has a bunch of stuff in my repair. I was at the car waiting for the truck, tow truck. And I was told, very first thing I was told was, get everything out of the car. Take everything out of the car. You may end up leaving the car where you bought it, which wouldn't be a bad outcome, but I'm not sure it's going to be able to happen money-wise, but this is the communication I clearly got. Take everything out of the car. You're not going to be keeping stuff in the car anymore, or at least right now. So my wife had come over to pick me up, and we were deciding whether I should go to the car and or go with the repair or go home. And I, got the same thing again. Get everything out of the car and take yourself, go back home and let them deal with it, and find out what they're willing to do at the dealership. And because they didn't tell me everything that wasn't right about the car when I bought it. They forgot to tell me that the undercarriage was not it was in pretty bad shape. It was rusted very badly from the ocean and probably a hurricane or storms or something like that. And that's why it was a used car. And they didn't tell me that. So anyway, that's the end of the story. But I'm trying to share it in the way that I'm trying to communicate how the new guides and everything is working together, and really takes a lot to listen. I missed a bunch of things, and they're really operating at this level with us of everything that you say or do or are getting is being related with that and with them, and or they are with it. Let's say, I don't know if these are the right terms. I couldn't be communicating them backwards to the proper identification, which would be to take the awareness and recognition and put that awareness first and recognition second, and then intention, whatever it is you're going to do. It's the same thing with building and or any other processing that we're doing. And so there it is. That's the adventure of this morning.
Great, Peter. Thank you.
Did you like that at all?
Chapter 1, yeah. That's only chapter 1. More to come, I'm sure. Any comments or questions for Peter?
Or anybody else? Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody, and cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Just personal. It sounds like all personal stuff, but really it's putting in that interrelation. Yeah. Thanks, Val. That's enough. Very cool. I know that
Peter.
the key words are familiarity, empathy, and artistry or creativity. In other words, use your family of operation, not family in the old sense. And the empathy is to have that sense of a relation and recognition with. It's more than compassion in some way, in some ways less than compassion, but it certainly created empathy and compassion there. And then the artistry or creativity is next of what you're going to do. Thanks, Val. That's enough yet.
Okay. Good, you're interpreting your own dream there, your own experience. It's good. You're working on it, figuring it out. Thank you.
Right, sir.